We all know what this really is. It's an attack on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's the wrong face for this league because her fans are so racist. Where have I heard this argument before?
Whitlock quickly highlights the real issue. Thomas's dislike for Clark isn't just about rivalry. It goes deeper, rejecting the idea of Clark as the new face of the WNBA. Instead of addressing her own poor behavior, Thomas is trying to shift the blame onto Clark and the media who support her.
Honestly, it's been a lot of nonsense. I think in my 11-year career, I've never experienced the racial comments from the Indiana Fever fan base. We had her face on a serious matter that happened in this world, and it's unacceptable, honestly.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. While Thomas tries to paint herself as the victim, the reality is much more troubling. Her comments about Caitlin Clark weren't just part of an online spat. They were racially charged attacks that led to an unprecedented suspension. By shifting the blame to Clark supporters, Thomas is only stirring up more controversy.
No one cared about your league before Caitlin Clark. There were no opposing fans. You barely had home fans.
Whitlock doesn't shy away from the truth. Caitlin Clark has brought unprecedented attention to the WNBA. Before her rise, the league struggled to draw crowds both at home and on the road. Now, with Clark in the spotlight, the attention is bigger and the stakes are higher. Alyssa Thomas is feeling the pressure, and instead of embracing the shift, she's lashing out, failing to recognize how much Clark has energized the league.
It's uncalled for, and something needs to be done, whether it's, them checking their fans or this league checking. There's no time for it.
Thomas appears to be dealing with an overwhelming amount of criticism, but what she intentionally ignores is that her own actions led to her suspension. Her racially charged remarks about Clark are the real issue, not the hate on social media. It's her direct role in creating a hostile environment in the WNBA that's under scrutiny.
300,000 people were watching your games before Caitlin Clark. Playoff games. And so now people showed up and you're dealing with what everybody deals with on social media. You've got 14,000 followers on Twitter. That ain't much of an audience, baby girl. You ain't catching a lot of strays.
Whitlock lays it out plainly. Caitlin Clark is largely responsible for the WNBA's current spotlight. Before her rise, the league struggled with low viewership, but now it's drawing more attention and larger crowds. Alyssa Thomas, feeling the pressure from this growing audience, claims to face overwhelming hostility, despite having just 14,000 Twitter followers. Whitlock's take is clear. Thomas isn't dealing with anything extraordinary. She's navigating the same social media landscape as any public figure. Her claims of victimhood don't add up. The WNBA saw a major shift when Thomas was suspended for her racially charged attack on Clark. Instead of owning her actions, she tried to shift the blame by accusing Clark supporters of racism after the game. The reality is, Thomas couldn't handle the pressure of competing in a league now dominated by Clark's star power. By making it about race, she tried to deflect from her own behavior. But this time, the league took a stand. The suspension sends a clear message. This kind of behavior won't be tolerated, and pointing fingers won't hide it.
There's an easy way. The league doesn't have to get involved. The Indiana Fever don't have to do something to get you away from social media. Put your phone down. Don't download the apps. Don't engage. Don't hold the Indiana Fever responsible for people whose tweets.
Whitlock points out a simple solution to Alyssa Thomas's situation. She could just step away from social media instead of blaming the Indiana Fever or demanding the league's involvement. No one is forcing her to engage with the hate or read the tweets. But instead of doing that, Alyssa chooses to shift the blame elsewhere, making her complaints about social media seem more like a distraction from the real issue. Her own behavior and frustration with Caitlin Clark, Thomas continues to deflect responsibility, blaming social media, fans, and even Clark herself, rather than addressing her actions or focusing on her poor performance. The real issue lies in what happened on the court, not online. Her suspension for a racially motivated attack on Clark makes it clear that this isn't just about public criticism. It's about a veteran player lashing out at a rising star who has surpassed her, and the WNBA finally had to step in.
We've been professional throughout the whole entire thing, but I've never been called the things that I've been called on social media, and there's no place for it.
Thomas often speaks about professionalism, but her actions have been far from that. The real issue isn't about a few social media comments. It's her racially motivated attack on Caitlin Clark that crossed the line. Her suspension has now pushed the WNBA to reevaluate its core values and how it handles situations like this.
Someone walk me through it, because she's speaking in riddles. Do you work on social media? Don't hold the Indiana Fever responsible for people whose tweets you don't even know who the author is.
Whitlock's direct criticism of Thomas's excuses highlights just how absurd they are. Her focus on social media abuse is nothing more than a distraction from the real issue, her disdain for Caitlin Clark. Instead of taking responsibility for her actions, Thomas keeps shifting blame. But the WNBA isn't falling for it anymore.
Basketball is headed in a great direction, but nah, we don't want fans that are going to degrade us and call us racial names.
Thomas attempts to shield herself with talk of development, but her hypocrisy is obvious. She's the one who has attacked Caitlin Clark, both physically and professionally. It's hard to take her seriously when she talks about fans disrespecting athletes. Now, she's facing the consequences of her actions, which speak far louder than her words.
Quit coming up with these excuses to hate Caitlin Clark, to abuse Caitlin Clark.
Whitlock is clear and unfiltered. The root of this issue lies in Thomas's jealousy and hostility toward Caitlin Clark, not in social media or fan reactions. The suspension serves as a warning from the WNBA that such behavior will not be tolerated, no matter who you are. It's not just a penalty for her comments. It's a statement about accountability.
We already see what's happening in the world and what we have to deal with in that aspect. And, we come to play basketball for our job and it's fun, but we don't want to go to work every day and have social media blown up over things like that.
Thomas claims she wants to focus solely on basketball, but her actions off the court suggest otherwise. She is the one fueling this debate, not the fans. Her attacks on Caitlin Clark are rooted in personal grudges that go beyond the game. Now, she's facing the consequences of her outbursts with her suspension.
The only reason why people even know who she is because of Caitlin.
Whitlock hits the nail on the head. Thomas's resentment isn't just about basketball. It's tied to Caitlin Clark becoming everything she is not, the future of the WNBA. Thomas's bitterness has festered as Clark continues to excel, culminating in the racial attack that has stunned the league.
But the WNBA, because it's a woke league and because it's leaned into people directing their hatred of Caitlin Clark at Caitlin Clark fans.
This issue goes beyond Alyssa Thomas. The entire league has grappled with how to handle Caitlin Clark's rapid rise. Players like Thomas have crossed the line in expressing their frustration. The WNBA's decision to suspend Thomas is a clear step towards stopping the racial attacks directed at Clark. While Thomas tries to frame this as a social media issue, her suspension speaks volumes. It was her off-court behavior, not tweets, that led to this situation. The league had to confront the real problem, Thomas's direct attack on Caitlin Clark, which is far more significant than any social media conflict.
We come to play basketball for our job and it's